10 cringe-worthy cars of the 1960s. We're about to take you on a wild ride through the most cringe-worthy cars of the 1960s. The kind of vehicles that make you scratch your head and wonder, what were they thinking? From outrageously quirky designs to downright bizarre features, these cars are a bizarre chapter in automotive history. Join us as we count down the 60s cars that are so bad, they're almost good. And trust us, you won't want to miss a second of it. Ready for some automotive nostalgia with a twist? Hit that like button, share the video, and subscribe to Muscle Car Masters for more jaw-dropping classic car content. 1964 Lightburn Zeta Sports. First up, we've got the 1964 Lightburn Zeta Sports, one of the most notorious failures in Australian automotive history. Now, Australian-designed cars are rare, and if you've ever wondered why, the Zeta Sports is a pretty good example. It's not just that it looked unusual, it was outright weird. Lightburn and Cochin, a company known for making cement mixers and washing machines, decided to step into the automotive world by revamping the British Anzani-built Astra car. The Astra was already pretty plain, but Lightburn wanted to make it their own, so they slapped a fiberglass body on it. The result? A design that can only be described as unfortunate. The Zeta, introduced in 1964, was already off to a rough start, but Lightburn took another swing with the Zeta Sports, which was meant to be the sporty version. Inspired by the Frisky Sprint, a car from the 1958 Earl's Court Motor Show, the Zeta Sports was reworked with modified doors, a restyled tail, and new headlamps. Despite these changes, the car never caught on. Only 28 units were sold, making it one of the rarest failures in automotive history. 1966 Lotus Europa. Let's talk about one of the most cringe-worthy 60s cars that still makes people scratch their heads. The 1966 Lotus Europa. Take a good look at this thing. What exactly is it trying to be? A sports car? A delivery van? Some kind of experimental pickup? Even the designers at Lotus probably weren't too sure. It's hard to believe that this came from the same company responsible for some of the most beautiful and purpose-built sports cars of the era. But here we are, staring at one of the strangest creations Lotus ever put on the road. The Europa was built following the philosophy of Colin Chapman, the founder of Lotus. Simplify, then add lightness. Well, they certainly didn't simplify much with this design. Instead of a sleek sports car, what we got was a fiberglass-bodied mid-engine oddball sitting on a boxed steel backbone chassis. A concept that made sense for structural rigidity but looked downright weird. The car was powered by a 1.5-liter Renault inline-4, making about 82 horsepower, which wasn't exactly thrilling. Why would a vehicle feature a boxed steel backbone chassis paired with a molded fiberglass body? The most plausible explanation is that it stemmed from an experimental design by an amateur designer whom the company wanted to support. 1967 Matra 530. Now, let's move on to the next cringe-worthy 60s car, the 1967 Matra 530. If you've ever wondered what happens when a group of engineers designs a car while in a terrible mood, this is your answer. To be fair, designing a mid-engine sports car is no easy task, just ask Lotus. But while the Lotus Europa looked odd, the Matra 530 looked like an intentional prank. Matra, a company better known for making military equipment and racing cars, decided to enter the road car market with something innovative. The result? A car that had the awkward proportions of a science project gone wrong. The strange belt line, the bizarre B-pillar design, and the desperate attempt to distract from it all with bright paint colors only made things worse. Sure, it had a 1.7-liter V4 engine from Ford, making 70 horsepower, and it was relatively lightweight, thanks to its fiberglass body. but no amount of performance could make up for that look. 1963 Hillman IMP. Next up, we have a car that lives up to its name in more ways than one. The 1963 Hillman IMP. This little British oddball was born out of necessity. Thanks to the Suez Crisis of 1956, the UK faced a fuel shortage, forcing manufacturers to rethink their gas-guzzling ways. The Roots Group, known for making hefty, fuel-thirsty cars, decided to go small. Unfortunately, they went too small in some areas and too big in others, creating a car that looked like it couldn't decide what it wanted to be. The Imp had a rear-mounted 875cc aluminum inline-4, producing 39 horsepower. Not exactly a powerhouse. The hatchback-style rear was practical, but the uneven proportions made it look unfinished. Some say it was originally meant to be front-engine, but somewhere along the way, that plan got scrapped, and the engineers just rolled with it. The result was the Hillman Imp, an odd mix of metal that wasn't exactly a wagon, not quite a hatchback, and certainly not a looker. 1962 Renault 8. If you've ever looked at a car and wondered which way it's facing, you've probably been staring at the 1962 Renault 8 for too long. With its boxy shape, nearly identical front and rear ends, and an engine awkwardly stuffed in the back, this car was as confusing as it was cringeworthy. It was almost as if Renault's designers were playing a prank on buyers. Because why else would you design a car that looks like it could drive forward or backward without anyone noticing? Under the hood, under the trunk, you'd find a 956cc inline-4 engine, making an earth-shattering 43 horsepower. While that might sound underwhelming, Renault made up for it with a rear-engine, rear-wheel drive layout, which gave the car some interesting handling characteristics. Let's just say, if you didn't respect the weight distribution, you might find yourself unintentionally testing the limits of 1960s tire technology, especially in the rain. Surprisingly, despite its oddball looks, the Renault 8 stuck around until 1973. Some enthusiasts even appreciated its reliability and durability, and it even saw some success in motorsports, particularly in the Gordini versions that gave it a much-needed power boost. But let's be real. 1962 Imperial. Next up, we have a car that's anything but small, the 1962 Imperial. Chrysler set out to compete with the big names like Cadillac and Lincoln, but instead of breaking new ground, they made design choices that left us all scratching our heads. Offered in custom, crown, and LeBaron trims, the Imperial featured those standalone headlights that gave the front end a skeletal look, as if the car was missing some crucial facial features. And don't get me started on the taillights. Huge, flashlight-style units awkwardly perched on top of the rear fins, making the car seem perpetually startled. Under the hood, though, this Imp wasn't all bad news. It came equipped with a robust 413 cubic inch V8 engine that pumped out 340 horse, offering plenty of muscle to keep up with its competitors. But while its mechanical credentials were solid, the Imperial stubbornly clung to old-school body-on-frame construction. At a time when the industry was shifting to unibody designs for better handling and weight efficiency, this dated approach made the car look out of step with modern trends. (1961) Plymouth Fury. Let's take a ride back to 1961 and explore one of the most controversial designs of the early 60s, the Plymouth Fury. Originally introduced as a high-performance version of the Belvedere in 1956, the Fury quickly gained a reputation for its sleek styling and powerful engines. However, by 1961, Plymouth took a bold turn in design, and not everyone was on board. The 1961 Fury featured an eye-catching yet polarizing front grille, a sharp contrast to previous models. The aluminum grille appeared pinched inwards, creating a face that many found awkward. Out back, The car sported large tail fins with unique rocket pod taillights, reflecting the space-age design trends of the time. Inside, things didn't get much better. The Fury had a ridiculously fussy dashboard that could make your eyes spin. With a cluttered layout, oddly placed switches, and a futuristic but impractical gauge cluster, it was more confusing than convenient. Drivers had to navigate a maze of dials and buttons, making the cockpit feel more like an aircraft than a muscle car. Under the hood, though, the Fury did not disappoint. Buyers could opt for several V8 engines, including the 318 cubic inch AV8, 361 cubic inch BV8, and 383 cubic inch BV8, producing between 230 horsepower and 330 horsepower. Paired with a 3-speed manual or the smooth torque-flight 3-speed automatic transmission, the Fury remained a thrilling ride. At 209.5 inches long and weighing around 3,700 pounds, the Fury was both spacious and powerful. 1961 Checker Marathon. Next up is a ride that really makes you question what happened in the automotive design department. The 1961 Checker Marathon. If you thought the ugly, blocky designs of the 1950s were finally behind us, think again. The Checker Marathon seems to be a love letter to every design misstep of that earlier era. Imagine a car that looks like it was plucked straight from a time when bad design was the norm, and you've got the Marathon. Under the hood, this beast was powered by a Continental-built L-head inline-6 engine. Now, don't get me wrong, the engine could kick out a decent pace, giving the Marathon a surprising burst of speed. But no amount of performance can distract you from its most jarring feature, a full-width egg crate grille that dominates the front end. Seriously, many wished that grille could just vanish because it screams outdated at every angle. And here's the kicker. The exterior design of the Checker Marathon barely changed over its entire 21-year production run. That means for over 2 decades, drivers were stuck with the same unappealing look, even as car design evolved around them. It's almost unbelievable that anyone would continue to manufacture or even drive a car that stubbornly held on to such an embarrassing design. (1960) Plymouth Valiant. This next car stood out for its unconventional styling, the 1960 Plymouth Valiant. At first glance, its sharp lines, unique grille, and pronounced rear fenders made it look unlike anything else on the road. The design came from Virgil Exner's team at Chrysler, following his signature forward look styling. While Exner was instrumental in shaping the company's bold designs, the Valiant was developed as a standalone model rather than a Plymouth at first. It was later rebranded under the Plymouth name. Under the hood, the Valiant came standard with a 170 cubic inch slant 6 engine producing 101 horsepower. Unlike many American cars of the era, it didn't offer a V8 option at launch, focusing instead on efficiency and practicality. The car featured a 3-speed manual transmission as standard, with an optional automatic. With a wheelbase of 106.5 inches and a curb weight of about 2,800 pounds, it was a nimble, compact car designed to compete with the growing popularity of imports and smaller domestic models. 1960 Marcos GT Xylon. The final vehicle on our list might just have you cringing, the 1960 Marcos GT Xylon. This car, from a British automaker already notorious for its less-than-stellar designs, earned the nickname Ugly Duckling even before it hit the road. Designed by Frank Costin, the same aerodynamic expert behind several Lotus race cars and van walls, the Xylon was meant to break new ground. Instead, it ended up as a visual shocker. Despite its bizarre and off-putting appearance, the Xylon was engineered with racing in mind. It featured a marine plywood monocoque chassis, an innovative yet unconventional approach that kept its weight remarkably low at around 900 to 1,000 pounds. This featherweight build allowed for impressive agility and handling on the track. Under the hood, the Xylon was powered by the Ford 105e engine, a 997cc inline-4 producing 39 to 43 horsepower in stock form, though tuned racing versions pushed over 60 horse. It was mated to a 4-speed manual transmission, making the most of its modest power output. Thanks to its lightweight construction and well-balanced chassis, the Xylon caught the attention of racing legends like Jackie Stewart and Jem Marsh, who appreciated its nimble performance despite its hideous looks. Thanks for joining us on this wild ride through some of the most cringe-worthy 60s cars ever built. We've seen designs so outrageous that even seasoned racers avoided them. From bizarre styling to unexpected performance quirks, these vehicles truly embody the term cringe-worthy. What do you think? Is it the design or the specs that make these rides unforgettable? Drop your thoughts in the comments and let us know which car shocked you the most. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe Muscle Car Masters for more awesome content on cringe-worthy 60s cars. See you in the next video.